those things are moving. Okay, so cool. So now he's on 2, so put like 2 up. Don't turn it on yet, just put it up. It's gonna take you long.
Shalom, Yisrael, Yehonathan Dawid with you here. That's Trey McLaughlin with Good Father. This is what they call the 20th of June, 2021, Father's Day. And that was a beautiful rendition from Trey McLaughlin, Good Father. Now, this is Nasso. Okay, Nasso, you can go through Numbers 4:21 through Numbers 7:89. The Haftorah is Judges 13:2-25. Now, last week, this is Torah portion number 35. We are rolling along. I'm telling you, you need to don't take this for granted, because we're not going to go through these again. You have to contact me for any ones you've missed or anything you want to review, because you're going to understand Daniel and Revelations better, and you understand everything better when you get these Torah portions under your belt. Now, last week talking about how, and about these Torah portions. Remember, these are the bones and the structure for which holds us up. But I want to admonish any new ones out there to not be so quick to teach, because there's a higher standard of someone who teaches. And when you teach something, you must have a grasp of it. You must own it. And Yahweh talks about this last week, how the Levites were held to a higher standard because of the position they held for Yahweh's people. I'm sitting here at a mic, and I have books out and ministries and stuff. I must realize that I am serving Yahweh's elect. Serving Yahweh's elect, and this is not something to be taken lightly. And they learned that. Those who rose up against Moshe, thinking it's such a glamorous position, it is not. You do not understand how much work goes into me doing this every week. And this is just one part of what I do. This is a lot. Do not be quick to teach. You will be held to a high standard, and Yahweh takes seriously those who stand before him. See Nadab and Abihu. Now, and I say that because I know that, there are very few of you out there who call themselves Hebrew Israelites who've been even around since the year 2000. And that's when you got the internet, when people had the internet at their fingertips in their own homes, when people could have a desktop in their homes. So some of you became aware of who you were in the year 2000, but not that many. Most of you came around in 2009 when you had the smartphone in your hand. And the smartphone is smarter than you. And we do our research through a smartphone. There is no such thing as researching from a smartphone. If you can get your thumbs out and put in some a question or information and get information from that, that's no different than what a 5-year-old could do. Click in the name or topic or whatever and pull up something. That's not research. I'm not saying it's not a tool. I use it every day, but it is not research. Do not mistake in your thumb searches for my scholarly research. Yehonathan Dawid with you here on WFBR 1590 AM. Now these Torah portions are a blueprint, like I said, for Daniel Revelations. And last week we talked about how, which I didn't even know this myself, that Yah really didn't even, not really, Yahweh didn't want even the tribes to be mixing. The tribes were supposed to be autonomous from one another. Now together they were a nation, but individually they were not even supposed to mix. That shows you how particular Yahweh is, and this is for a reason. And he says, we learned last week that he said, no outsider is allowed to represent Yahweh for his people. No outsider is allowed to stand before Yahweh for his people. It must be someone who is genetically related to him. That's why the Redeemer is a Goel. Goel is a genetic word. And when Yahweh does this, because remember, Esau is seeking to get into the kingdom. He gave up his birthright and he cannot get it back. So ever since then, he has had perpetual hatred against you. And he is seeking to get in. Yahweh has closed every route there is for him to get in. No outsiders allowed. But we know in the time of Yahweh, Shua, that Esau ruled over us under the authority of the Roman Empire. And to this very day, Esau, they came out with us in the Exodus, and they're in our camps today. If you got 3 or 4 brothers worshiping together on Shabbat, you might have one of them is an Esau, from the Erev Rav, and he is a spy. And his whole job is to put tares with the wheat and mix up your ministry. That's why you must be strong. Get under a good, solid preacher who preaches the unleavened name of Yahweh Shua HaMashiach. Follow teaching that is unleavened in the name of the one who you say you believe in. Do not get distracted from what the error of Rav is trying to get you distracted with, which things that don't matter and things that take you from your salvation. If you're not understanding by now, this is the 35th episode, if you will, of the Torah portions, that these are to connect us to Yahweh Shua, from religion to relationship, then you still have some listening to do, some praying and growing up to do. And starting in chapter 4, verse 21, we see now the Kohathites are counted. Beit Midbar is the true name of this book, not Numbers. And Beit Midbar is in the wilderness. But this is the counting of Yahweh's people. The Kohathites are counted. The Kohathites are one of the 3 sons of Levi. The other 2 are the Gershonites and the Merarites. And the Kohathites, they carried the most sacred, if you will, items of the tent of meeting. And per the Talmud, the Gershonites, one of their jobs was to do the singing. You know, singing and music adds to the worship service. It even adds to the broadcast here. Music adds to it, and the Gershonites were, amongst their duties, were charged with that. Eleazar, he oversaw all 3 of the families. Ithamar was the treasurer. And each of the Levites were given specific tasks. Yahweh is a man of order. Everyone knew what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Everything was seamless in dealing with Yahweh's Mishkan, the tent of meeting. In your ministries, you must be organized. You must realize that you are serving Yahweh's elect, and you must put forth your best. Do not be shipshod and with Yahweh's word. Do not treat it as common. It is kodesh. It is set apart, and that's the way I respect you, and I respect this knowledge that Yahweh gives me, and I take it with sincerity, fasting and praying, and setting myself apart from even other Hebrews. In chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, it talks about the purification of the camp. And it talks about how defilement is banished. In this passage, we see that this is the first of Abib. This is the beginning of the new year for them. The Mishkan is sanctified on this day. And what Yahweh did, he had Moshe put out all the lepers, anyone who had a discharge or who was defiled by a corpse, they were all put out the camp. Yahweh is serious. He wanted no impurities in the camp. We got rid of a lot of them. But there was still some in there. And there's still even some was in there probably even after this. And you know what? A lot of these who were dispelled from the camp end up hooking up with Esau, having a covenant with the accuser who worked through Esau. And what you're going to find is they end up coming back to us in another way. They leave, but they don't stay away. Tares never grow alone. No one's going to go to a whole field of tares to harvest them. Tares must grow with the wheat. They want to be with the wheat. They disguise themselves. There's no value of tares being separate because they'll be left alone to die. They will not thrive and get involved in life. Life is the wheat. That's us. So Esau is going to always be in our camps. You need to have good leadership to be able to parse them out. That's what Yahweh did here, getting rid of those who had a discharge, those who had any kind of impurities, or the feeling, or any kind of dealings with anything with death, any lepers. They were all put out of the camp. If you don't like that, that's too bad. That's for straight from the book. In verse 6, he reiterates how we're supposed to treat our brother. And our brother is one who is like-minded as you, who is kindred of the same cloth as you in the mind of Yahweh Shua. See, here's the thing. Yisrael are learning. You know how you see a car, when you see a sticker says new driver or rookie driver, the person has license to drive, but they're still new. And Israel is still new. They're rookie drivers. They really didn't realize that they were preparing themselves for spiritual warfare. Not just a physical battle, but spiritual warfare. And Yahweh was preparing them for spiritual warfare. One of the things it says in verse 7 is that we need to recognize our faults, repent, and then confess. Because this is all about relationship. He's given us religion to see how to find Yahweh in a relationship of it. The more you study this word, the more you come to see Yahweh Shua. The more you come to see the closer you get to it, the more of your imperfections you see. This is deep. You're not going to get everything. You cannot make an assessment or judgment of this ministry listening to one broadcast or 2 or 10. You're going to have to listen to it link by link, seamlessly, to understand. I'm saying a lot of deep things that are connected. When I say the word see, you're talking about the brazen laver, how it was constructed, where the materials came from. Everything I'm saying is deeper than what I'm saying. There's multi-layers to learning. Now, verse 9 talks about the raised portion. Again, this is deep. This even goes to Revelations. The teruma is a raised portion offering that goes to the priest. That word raised portion is important. You heard it before, you're going to hear it again. And then Yahweh in verse 10 talks about there is no justification for taking anything from your brother. When you take something from your brother, it's like taking it from Yahweh. It is coveting, the foundation of all sins. All the other 9, they stack themselves on top of that. Thou shalt not covet is the 10th commandment. It really is the first. You violate that one, you're going to violate all the others, including trying the first of not recognizing Yahweh as who he say he is. Now, in verses 11 to 31, you have what's called the Soda Treatise, the Law of the Wayward Wife. I'm holding up for the broadcast. I have in my second book, Yahweh Shua, I Am Original Words, Original Truth. I'm going to skim through this in pages in my book, the second book, in the chapter The Bride and the Tree, pages 154 to 173, for the few of you out there who have the book. But for those who out there want to get it, I'm going to not read all the details of this. This is a beautiful passage that you I'm not seeing the detail of this found anywhere else that I outline here. And this is the law of the wayward wife. And it's given here in the book of Numbers, and it has everything, every meaning for us today. It had meaning for Yahweh when he came here in the so-called New Testament, and for us today. So even though it's in Numbers, it's meaningful to us today. Now, how is that? I'm going to read some from my book on this law, and I'm going to try to connect it to us to make it real for us today. Now, starting on page 154, and I'm going to skim, and it says, Numbers 5:11 through 31 outlines the ordinance of the adulterous bride. An ordinance, that word is mishmareth. And it's an important word. It means to watch, the act, the century, the post, object preservation, safe, observance, duty, charge, keep office, safeguard, ward. Now that's a strong, that means this is something, in other words, don't take this lightly. You need to really follow this. And then the root of this word mishmareth means to hedge about with thorns, to guard it, protect it, attend to it, be circumspect, heed, look narrowly, preserve, regard, reserve, save, sure, wait. Am I making my point clear here? Or is Yahweh making his point clear? That this is a meshmarith. This law of the adulterous bride is a meshmarith. He is making a lot of emphatic verbiage to get into our hearts and our minds to take this seriously, what I'm getting ready to outline for you now. In other words, you need to turn up the volume and listen. Perk your ears up. Don't multitask right now. Listen. Okay? Now, relationship with Yah requires purity, and defilement is banished. If a wife conducts herself in an unrighteous way, resulting in jealousy from her husband, suspecting adultery but without evidence, Yah himself, who is the vigilant man on the wall for the seed watching, Yahweh watches our seed, intervenes with his own name on the plumb line. Yahweh puts his name on the line. This is a miraculous process that proves sin by the adulterous wife and partner, and the husband, or proves that she and or all parties was faithful. If she in fact did sin, the acting out of the arduous, humiliating process might encourage her to outright confess, thereby ending the marriage. If she in fact was faithful, she would be absolved publicly for the imposition of shame placed upon her, as evidenced by her conceiving seed. She also would be even more fruitful than before, and with easy childbirth. So we talking about the law of the adulterous bride here as outlined in Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 31. Now I'm going to the next page. I'm going to read page 155. There are two paramount terms here. One is there. Okay, one is ma'al. Now ma'al is when the accused handles herself treacherously against Yahweh. Treacherously. So this is falsehood, is grievous, a grievous sore transgression. It is a very sore, and ma'al means to cover up. So the other word is to cover up. So this is when a person is trying to cover up something that is grievously sore against Yahweh. So this is not just like your regular routine sin, okay? And in other words, Yah is being violated in his Kodesh place. And the Kodesh place for us is the woman's womb. That's a Kodesh place, what you call sacred and holy. So Yahweh is putting his name on the line to guard the sanctity of her womb. This is what this is all about. Because remember, his son, the Redeemer of the entire creation, was going to come through the womb of a woman. Remember what he said to Mother Hawa. She was deceived, not Adam. But she will be saved through the sanctity of her womb. She's going to bring forth the seed. Her seed is going to bring forth the answer to Hasatan. It's going to crush Hasatan's head coming through her womb. So this is something we need to take seriously when I'm reading here. Don't take it lightly. Yahweh didn't take it lightly. He's telling you not to take it lightly. It's an ordinance. Now the wife is guilty of ma'al, of the Kodesh place. All right. So she is now tam. That's foul. And this means especially ceremonially foul. This is not routine foul. This is contamination, ritually defiled and polluted and unclean. This is anathema of the purity required in the presence of the Shekinah of Yahweh. Remember, I just read how he put out anything that was foul from the camp. They were put out. And it's very fitting that right in the next chapter now, he talks about this wayward wife. This is the very next chapter after putting out everything. This is something to take serious. I keep saying this over and over again. This is for us to know that we deceive ourselves if we think Yah is mocked by overflowing us with his blessings. Okay? Here meaning that we are not to marry for the convenience of our passions, nor for material gains. We're not going to just serve Yahweh for what he gives us. We're not going to just get married just for sex. We're not having a covenant just for our self-servingness. We are not to be covetous of Yah for his convenience, for the convenience that he gives us, nor of obtaining his largesse. Fidelity is of the soul, heart, mind, and lastly, the body. We need Yahweh. He doesn't need us. To obtain a greater understanding of him and to better beautify our relationship with him, he gives us marriage. This is another Kodesh covenant demanding faithfulness without leaven. This is faithfulness to Yahweh, and for us to understand that, he gives us a wife to teach us faithfulness with her, and she with us, without leaven, without mixing with others. We are to discern that our oath to Yah is a Kodesh oath, not contingent on convenience nor tangible gains. Okay? You're not just getting her just for the bennies. But this is a representative on earth of what of our covenant in heaven. The horizontal covenant is how we handle that, speaks to how we handle our vertical covenant. And that of a faithful man is to enter the holy place of a pure bride. We're supposed to enter the holy place of a pure woman, pure wife. And not a grotesque, and if we don't do this, a grotesque death will follow. So it is this paramount of purity ritual is being taught here. And it can only be validated by a miracle. See, there's no way they didn't have your forensics we have today, where you use forensic evidence to see whether a woman was, if you had 3 men accused of rape, for instance, you can tell which one actually did it based on forensic evidence. This is Yahweh's forensic evidence. His own name is on the line. His name, you can't get higher than that. So we see that because a judge can't adjudicate this without Yahweh, because even if the evidence favors the wife, the husband is still going to be doubtful. He's not going to be spontaneous with his wife like he used to be. He's still going to have his doubts. But with Yahweh's name on the line, then everything is different. That can allay all anxieties and fears he had. If Yahweh says she's innocent, the man will have no fear and he will believe that she is. So, reading on, the unthinkable erasure of Yahweh's name of the Most High Eternal Yahweh is to be mixed with the waters from the temple laver. Remember, there was a brazen laver called the sea. I'm saying words right now that you need to put in your memory file, because they're going to be recalled back again when we go through Daniel and Revelations. This is deep. Okay. And remember how that laver was made with the mirrors of the wives. It was made out of copper and filled with Kodesh water, and it was to be mixed with the ashes of the ruddy heifer. We didn't even talk about the ruddy heifer. We have but I'm going to have to give a whole nother lesson. This is deep and is multi-layered. I pray that you'll listen to a brother and support him, because I'm teaching things here that even I'm not even hearing our Hebrew leaders even give us. This water, this mikvah, is mixed with the ashes of the bloody heifer, and it comes from the laver that was made from copper from the mirrors of the wives. All of this is important, and it has meaning for us today and into the future. So this ordinance is so important, okay, that actually a crafty wife can demand that Yahweh speak by provoking her husband to jealousy if he no longer sleeps with her. And in this ritual, Yahweh then attests to her innocence and faithfulness, resulting in the collateral evidence of childbirth, the end goal of the crafty wife. So this is mind-boggling. So even if the wife was faithful, she can pretend like she wasn't to get the husband to enact this ordinance, because she knows she's innocent. So when this ordinance is enacted, she's declared innocent. Now the husband's got to sleep with her, and she once again will have children, and with easy childbirth. So this is something. This is the only ordinance where Yahweh is answering to the man and or the woman. He comes down from his throne to answer to man. That's how deep this is, where Yahweh must answer to the wife. He must answer to the husband. Now, reading on. So, going to the next. Now, remember, I'm reading a lot of this from my book, and I suggest you get it because there's a lot more detail in here. Going to this page 156 on the first paragraph. I read that. Now I'm going to 161. I'm going to skip through a lot of this. And I don't care if I don't get through a lot of this today's lesson, but you're going to get this one. You're going to get this ordinance of the bride. 161. To begin, we're going to talk about it. To begin, the scribes and Pharisees, when they tried to enact this when they brought in the woman of adultery to Yahweh in the temple. They didn't do it right. They wanted her stoned because that would absolve them. Yahweh was going to enact this ordinance. He began by starting to write his father's name on the ground in the dust. Once they started recognizing the name of Yahweh being written, they started walking away because they knew Yahweh was going to enact this ordinance. And they knew that in this ordinance, it would be found out emphatically what was going on. What was going on was those men who were accusing her was the ones who raped her, including her husband, who was the head man. They gang raped her, including her husband. That's why they all walked away. So this ordinance was never enacted. He told the woman, go away and sin no more. So I'm going to go ahead and skip through a lot of this, but let's go to the plumb line. In Numbers 5:8, the guilty bride is put on public display, being moved about for 3 hours with arms raised to humiliate her and to tire her out. Being a spectacle is supposed to induce a confession, averting the trial. In Numbers 5:13, witnesses are brought forth, if any. In Numbers 5:15, a meal offering of jealousies is presented by the husband, who is the jealous accuser. This offering must be a grain offering, of which there are 3 types. This scenario grain offering would be of the 3rd type, which is the green heads of grain. Customarily, the ritual calls for oil and frankincense, but because this one is a reminder of sin and for jealousies, they are not added. Numbers 5:26, the grain offering calls for the priest to get his portion. Remember, I'm going to go through all this in the New Testament of Yahweh, how he is compared to the adulterous bride. Numbers 5:18. Here it is presumed that the adulterer entered the court with head covered, but it should not be, as she is supposed to be, not honorable. So having entered the court covered, her head would be uncovered to shame her. Numbers 5:22. The accused agrees to the oath that brings a curse. Numbers 5:17 and 23. Hashem Kodesh must be written by the Kohen. The name of Yahweh is written by the Kohen, then erased and mixed with the Kodesh ruddy heifer water from the temple laver. Numbers 5:24. This makes a bitter water from the guilty bride to drink. Numbers 5:21. The guilty bride's thighs rot, and her stomach distends. Numbers 5:27-31. She is an open curse, mocked, and dies miserably. Numbers 5:28. But if innocent, she gives forth birth because the covenant relationship has been resumed. And there's a lot more for me to read here from my book, but I'm going to skip and go to how this all was shown in Yahweh and his sacrifice for us in the so-called Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. First, we know that Yahweh is brought before the chief Cohen, the high priest Caiaphas, and the Sanhedrin 3 hours before dawn to tire him for confession. You can find that in John 18:28. Yahweh is offered to speak for himself and confess, but he did not. You can find it in Matthew 27:12-14. Remember, I was reading from the book of Numbers. Now I'm going all the way to the New Testament to back it up, to show you that we're going from the blood covenant to the water covenant. Even though this is all in the 613, it applies to us in the New Testament and it's going to apply to us today. Now, next, Yahweh faces the false witnesses of treachery. We can find it in Mark 14, verses 55-59. Next, consider that Yahweh was offered twice. The second time was on the Mount of Olives. We all know about that, on the Tree of Life. But the first offering is an offering of jealousies, was in the temple. Remember, because he says in Matthew 27:18 that he was offered for jealousy. So the two-part grain offering was made with a burnt offering as a thanksgiving in a covenant with Yah. This burnt offering, which is the second offering, was completed on the tree. Yahweh gave all with nothing left. The grain offering, which is the first offering completed in the temple, was to be unleavened. The third day resurrection proved Yahweh to be pure and unleavened. And then the implements are there. Now, I'm trying to, within about 3 to 5 days, to get this released to you again with this written. You know, I download this and I put it on the YouTube channel. Then I have an upgraded version, which you can see this better. I'm going to have it outlined in the upgraded version. It's going to be written out for you and you can understand it better. Okay? So just want to caution you, you can go ahead and look at the YouTube version of it that I send out either today or tomorrow. But if you have patience, you can wait for the next version that comes out with this outline. It's more difficult to get you to understand it as I read it here to you now. So now, the remaining portion of the grain offering was for the priest. And you can find that in Matthew 27:26. Because this is when Pilate scourged Yahweh, and that was part of the blood sacrifice. He gave him 40 lashes. Okay? The next, Yahweh is seized and rushed to the Kohen Caiaphas with his head lowered and a bloody lock-covered face like a bride's veil. Caiaphas uncovers his head, pushes the head back to see his bludgeoned face for embarrassment and questioning. Yahweh is stripped for further humiliation, beaten again, reclothed, then adorned with a crown of violet blue hyssop for mocking. You can find that in Matthew 27:31 and Mark 15:20. Next, the curse of the Amen oath is affirmed with an agreement. Remember, he says, and the high priest answered and said to him, I put you under oath by the living El. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the son of El. Yahweh said to him, it is as you said. That's in Matthew 26:63 and 64. Okay? This is Yahweh fulfilling his role as the accused bride. I go on. Yahweh himself places his name on the line to validate the miracle of the ordinance. As such, the Kohen is told to do the unthinkable, that is to wipe out his name from the temple and mix it with the Mayin Kodesh, the holy water from the laver, to make a bitter witness. Consider that on the cedar placard atop Yahweh's head was written by the high priest, this is Yahweh, the king of the Yahudim. Remember, he wrote that on top and put it on top of his head. So, but by Yahweh later being completely bloody, because he was stoned and everything, his blood blotted out the name of Yahweh. Next, the Kala, which is the bride, drank the cup of bittersweet water. We know he did that when they gave him the vinegar and wine to drink, and he drank that bitterness for us. Next, the bride, she dies of a slow, gruesome death. This is the curse, the Amen curse, and the oath, the covenant. His supposed image of a frail, gay-looking, pale man is nothing like what he really looked like, okay? And I go into detail about what he looked like. I'm not going to read that here. And lastly, and actually it's not lastly because there's something that's not in my book that I'm going to mention. But finally, if the bride is innocent, she is honored by Yahweh before man with fruitfulness of her womb. Remember, this is all about the sanctity of the womb. The growth and flowering of her seed is evidenced by faithfulness. Yahweh rose after the third day because Sheol could not hold his purity. As the bride, evidence of his innocence is us. Look at how you can't look at all of us now, flourishing. Hebrews all over the world from his seed. This is proof and evidence that Yahweh indeed was an innocent bride. Remember, when he came up, he took the napkin off his face and folded it and laid it to the side. One of the ordinances also is that if a husband believes that his wife was not a virgin when he married her, her father had to bring her sheets. If her sheets had blood on it, that means she was innocent. She was indeed a virgin. Yahweh showed that he was innocent. He was a virgin bride. And he showed it with the blood on his sheets. He folded it and put it to the side so it could be examined. Yahweh answered this that we're reading right here in the so-called Old Testament in Numbers. This is a beautiful thing. You know, I hope that I'm sharing this with you. I think you should be getting goosebumps right now to see how this foreshadowed Yahweh and his sacrifice to us right here in Numbers. But Israel was not getting it then, and 99% of you are not getting it now. You're not getting it. And also for this ordinance, this Mishmareth, to be sealed and to be validated, the accusing husband must also be pure. He can't be whoring around and then accuse his wife of it and have her found guilty, but he continues. If he is guilty of whoring around, and even if the wife was guilty, she would be innocent because her husband was doing the same. This is the law. And we know that Yahweh was pure, and he proved himself, and that comes later. Now we go, and I hope that sunk in. This is deep. I hope that sunk in, Israel. In chapter 6, verse 2, we find that Yahweh made provisions for the man or the woman to consecrate herself or himself as even further on a higher calling. It's called a Nazarite vow. And a woman can, or man, they can consecrate themselves to Yahweh. It's called the Nazarite vow. In this, no vine or wine is supposed to be drank. Nothing from the vine is supposed to be drank. Remember, that's what started it all. Mother Hawa ate from the tree of TORAH. That tree was a vine. It was a Venus tree wrapped around a tree of life. And this also, more than 99% of you not understanding, the tree of good and evil, so-called good and evil, was a vinous tree wrapped around the tree of life. So she ate from the tree of good and evil, which was a vinous tree, and she gave it to her husband. So someone who wants to have a Nazarite vow is not supposed to eat anything from the vine. They also not supposed to cut their hair. The locks are supposed to grow. No vow can be less than 30 days. Their hair must be disheveled and bristling. This is sayar and perah. So it's like, you don't make your hair look nice and neat and pretty and all that stuff, and have it all tied up looking all good. So we realize that Yahweh he gave himself a Nazarite vow during his ministry. For the first part of his life, he ate and drank like all Hebrew men. But in the last 3.5 years, he was under the Nazarite vow. Now, here's something deep. This is just like, remember, now how does that apply to today? When Yahweh comes to Mount Sinai, remember the covenant was made at Mount Sinai. When he comes back again in his second coming, he's going to come back to Mount Sinai to meet up with Yehuda and his companions. I believe his companions are the Rechabites. When he comes, he's still under the Nazarite vow. He's going to have long locks, beard. Then, is after that point, remember, he's going to be attacked by the 200 million man army that we're going to read about in Revelations. Of course, he kills them all. As a Nazarite, this makes him in violation of his vow, because now he's near all these dead bodies. So when he comes to Zion, where Ephraim is, you and me, all of us in the north and the west, we're Ephraim. We come together and we're going to meet up with him at Zion. So when Yahushua comes to Zion, he's going to have to shave he's going to have to come to us bald-headed. He's going to have to shave his head because his Nazarene vow was violated when he killed the 200 million man army. That's deep knowledge I just gave you. When you meet your Messiah, Hamashiach, your Goel Redeemer, he's going to be bald-headed. So we see that the Nazarite vow, with the Nazarite vow being contaminated, that he's supposed to be escorted to the tent of meeting. But because no one is worthy to escort Yahushua, who perfectly kept his vow, Yahushua comes alone. Now, technically, we know he did not come alone. He's going to have Yehuda and Yehuda's companions with him. But Yahushua is going to come to Zion based on going by this Torah, by the rules and the laws here, bald-headed, after having ended the vow. But he's going to be a Nazarene eternally, and we're going to talk about that. So there must be an offering. When you come to this next temple they're going to have made, the 1,000-year temple, he's going to have offering of 2 turtle doves. Now I suggest that those 2 turtle dove offerings are going to be Enoch and Elijah. Remember the 2 witnesses that are going to be there before he gets there, and they get killed. They're going to be teaching the Besorah in Jerusalem. So then they get killed and left there openly for 3 days before they are brought back to life and taken back to Hashemayim. So my suggestion is that Yahushua's 2 turtle dove offerings will be Enoch and Elijah. Now what about the ram offering? I believe that atones for Adam and Eve. Remember, the 2 rams were the first animals ever sacrificed. Yahweh took off there. That means 4 horns. Those are the 4 horns that is represented on the altar. Those 4 horns were on the altar. Those were from the original sacrifice when Yahweh slayed the 2 rams to cover up Adam and Mother Hawa. Those 4 horns are represented on the altar. The 4 actual horns is what's going to be the first 4 trumpets blown in the Revelations. They're going to be blowing the ram's horns. Those first 4 horns will be from the original sacrifice. The last 3 are silver horns. So, again, see how I'm connecting the Old Testament to the New Testament and giving you deep revelation? Now, how about the this whole thing about the counting, the separate countings? When we're counted as a nation, we talked about this. We are looked at as the bride. As a nation, we are the bride. But individually, when we're counted by tribes, that's under the legalism of the man. We know that Dawid, he was born, according to the flesh, under the line of man. So there's still going to be this law for 1,000 years, the 613 kept on the millennial kingdom under man. But we know that Yahushua came from the womb of Miriam, who is not under man. So that's going to be the final ruling. So Dawid is going to rule over the world in the millennial kingdom under the 613, the laws of man, because he came through the line of man. Yahushua did not come through man. The Son of Man did not come. He came from the original man, through Miriam, without the horizontal man. He came from the vertical man. So now we find in verse 15, he has to give his thanksgiving offerings. And we see that Yahushua in verse 18 is going to be perpetual. He's going to be a perpetual Nazarite. So his hair is going to be growing again. So he's not going to stay with us forever bald-headed. It's going to grow again because he's a perpetual Nazarite, because he was pure and perfect. But this thing about the hair, cutting the hair, Again, Israel was not getting it. Because in Ezekiel 5, 1 through 4, he had to cut his head and shave his head, and he had to take it to different parts of the world, representing our dispersal. And then he took another part of it and burned it, and then he took another part of it and made tzitzits with it. So there's a lot of deep lessons in this thing about the hair I'm not going to go into now. But I do want to read from Luke 22:18. Luke 22:18, and it reads, and this is Yahweh talking, "For I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahweh comes." So we see that he has not drank from the fruit. He kept his Nazarite vow. He's not going to end it until after the millennial kingdom. And he will raise that glass and he will drink that with us. And that's when you had the bride and you had the guest. He breaks his vow before the whole creation after destruction of all the sinners of the world. Now I want to read from Numbers 7 and 21. Numbers 7 and 21. And it says, "This is the law of the Nazarites who vows to Yahweh the offering of his separation, and besides that, whatever else his hand is able to provide, according to the vow which he takes. So he must do according to the law of his separation." Again, applying to into the eternal kingdom, Yahweh Shua, he can have mercy on whom he'll have mercy. He completed his vow. There's a laws on becoming a Nazarite. There's a laws on coming out of it, and laws on maintaining it. Yahweh Shua is going to keep all these laws. Remember, he says, not one jot nor one tittle is going to be absolved until all things have been completed. They all lead to Yahweh Shua. Yahweh Shua is the X-Man. They all direct to him. If you cannot read the Old Testament, books of Moses, and not see Yahweh Shua in it, you have some maturing to do. Now, in verses 24 to 26, some of the most beautiful words ever in all the book is the priestly blessing. And it reads, "Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom." This is a three-part blessing, where it's a blessing of grace and the face of Yahweh be towards you. And what do we want other than peace? Yahweh says when this is all done, we will enter into his rest. We will have shalom, no more concerns, no more anxiety. So this is a formal blessing that the priests are to put on the people. And really, our priests, our ministers, our preachers should be putting this blessing on the people every Shabbat. So this takes us and they didn't get it, from a good covenant to a better covenant. It's a covenant of religion to a covenant of relationship. It's a covenant that says, Yahweh says, "I tell you the end from the beginning." In the beginning, he says, "Let there be or, let there be light." That means let there be the knowledge of Yahweh. We know it wasn't the sun that didn't come to the fourth day. He said, "Let there be or." In this blessing that's put upon the people, he's saying, "Let my people have the knowledge of me." And then at the end, he promises rest. So it's a relationship, it's knowledge of Yahweh, and it's rest. Beautiful, beautiful words. May our preachers put this blessing on us every Shabbat. In chapter 7, verse 1, we find that finally the Mishkan is consecrated by Moshe, and then each tribal leader gave personal offerings voluntarily. And before this, Moshe actually thought that the priest was supposed to carry all the implements of the Mishkan over their shoulders, but no. Yahweh told Moshe, "Hey, you go ahead and allow these gifts." So there were gifts of 6 oxen and 12 carts, or 12 carts, 6 oxen, whatever. And they used these to carry the implements of the Mishkan when they moved. And all of these articles have symbolisms to them. And all the offerings have symbolism to them. The second and third temples followed this order. Now, I'm not going to have time to go into the symbolism of all these offerings, but we know they gave bowls of silver, and their value was 930. All right? And that equals, remember, that equals the amount of years that Adam lived. Adam lived 930 years. And what was the weight of these silver bowls? 130. That's the age of Seth, of Adam when he had Seth. Now it has more meaning than this, but I'm not going to have time to go into all the gematria. Now the basin was 520. And we know Noah's age was 500 years. At 480 years is when he had his son. So, and that's when the flood was announced, 20 years before his 500th year. So that's what the 520 comes. How about the 70? The 70 shekels is the number of the nations descended from Noah. How about the ladle? The ladle is the Torah given from the hand of Yahweh, which weighed 10 shekels. The 10 shekels representing the 10 commandments. And how about the incense? Now the incense, again, it leads to the gematria of the law, the 613. And we know that Nadab and Abihu offered strange incense. This was a strange understanding of the law. This law is to be understood as getting us to understand Yahweh. The more you study it, the more you see your own errors and faults, and the more you see his face, and the more you come to love him and to come towards him. Remember, no man has seen the face of Yahweh in the time. If you want to see his face, the best you can do is to study this law, which leads you to love him, which leads you to desire a relationship with him, which leads you to now in your heart. Yahweh says love him with all your heart and all your might and all your soul. When you do that, you're not going to have time to flip through the pages and look for what you're supposed to do and not do. It's going to be in your heart, in your lab to Ohab Yahweh. The ram represents, first of all, the bull, that represents Abraham. Okay, Abraham is the bull, and that's the offering he gave. Abraham represents the bull, and then the ram represents Yitzhak. Remember, your ticket is in the thicket. Yitzhak, representing Yahweh Shua, voluntarily offered his life on the altar. His father, Abraham, was coming down with a knife. Yahweh Shua himself held back Abraham's right hand, his wrist, and stopped the knife from coming down to sacrifice his son. He says, you're not going to have to do that. I know where your heart is, and more importantly, you know where your heart is. Yahweh already knows, but that was for him to see. Turning around, he saw a ram in the thicket. And that's where our salvation came from. Yahweh Shua supplanted himself for us. He, like I read before, he became the guilty bride for us. He became the ram for us. Yahweh Shua juxtaposed our sin for his sin. But we do know he rose innocent. Otherwise, he couldn't have come out of that grave. Death and Hades could not hold him. We need to rejoice. Rejoice in Yahweh always. And again, I say rejoice. We should be happy. Wake up happy. Qadah in Yah. Because of this, all this I'm reading for you now, that Yahweh Shua bore it all. He paid the cost. He paid the cost for us. If you cannot see Yahweh Shua in these Torah portions, you got some growing up to do. These things I'm teaching here, you cannot Google it. Your iPhone isn't going to find this. This comes from Ruach HaKodesh on me. The anointing on me to share this stuff with you. I didn't Google this. I didn't get this from a smartphone. This phone is not smarter than me. I utilize the prince of the powers of the air. Shaul, did not the disciples, did not write letters with the technology that was given to them at that day, with the pens and the parchments and the papers that was given at that time. They utilized the technology that they had at that time to share and spread the Besorah. And I'm doing that now myself. Under Ruach HaKodesh. With real research. Not with thumb scholarship. Now, what about the goat? That represented Yusef. Remember, Yusef was betrayed by his brothers with a goat. They slew a goat and put the goat's blood on the tunic and presented it to Yaakov. So the offering by the Nazarene is the goat. So then we have the cattle. They are the peace offerings. They represent Moshe and Aharon. Everything is grouped in 3 groups with 5 animals. So the 3 groups is the Kohen, the Levites of Israel. And then the 5 animals are the 5 writings of Moshe and the 5 commandments on each tablet. Something very interesting that I wish I had more time to study today. And I'm going to have to talk about this a little bit next week. But that last verse, in verse 89, this is deep, verse 89. And I'm not going to explain it all now, but I'm going to at least I'm going to whet your appetite. In verse 89 of the 7th chapter, that ends Nasso Torah portion, it says, "Now when Moshe went into the tabernacle of meeting to speak with him," see, you call Yahweh him, "he heard the voice of one speaking to him from above the mercy seat that was on the ark of the testimony, from between the 2 cherubim. Thus he spoke to him." I found that very interesting that Yahweh was not called out. He just referred to him as him. I'm going to talk about that a little more next week. But this word is at. Okay? Or actually it's 8. And it means entity, and name, or namely, or self. And its root word is at. It means to a signal or a mark. It also has a second meaning hoe or plowshare. This is deep. This word at, this word him, and its corollary meaning of plowshare is deep. I'm going to really have to talk about that next week. But I want to end off with the Aaron blessing. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine on you and be gracious unto you. Yahweh lift up his face and his countenance upon you and give you shalom. And that word face and countenance is 2 different meanings, 2 different connotations. When you are in shalom with somebody, you look at them. Your face is on them, and they look at you. You not look at them sideways, you give them your attention. Yahweh's saying today, and I promise you in the future, to let my countenance shine upon you. Until next week, Yehonatan Dawid, Shalom Alakim, peace be on you. We're going to do Beha Elataka, when you step up. Numbers 8:1 through Numbers 12:6. Shalom Alakim, peace be on you.